Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here on a Sunday morning. And I'm so glad that we are launching a book of poetry here and not any other book. And Tishani over here is a poet, a dancer, a traveler. And it would be absolutely fascinating to see how poetry, dance, traveling, time, and the poet intertwine with each other. So Tishani here dances like a poet, stretching and bending in ways only poetry can. Her poetry dances and takes us far and wide to places beyond the seas. To ask you, why do you write poetry? And what is the true purpose of poetry to you?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. I see that your copy of the memoirs of Pablo Neruda is nice and dog-eared, and I have the same book. And probably Neruda is one of those poets that poets come to early in their career of poetry or their journey of poetry. And for me, certainly, coming across Neruda was sort of like coming across a sense of what is possible with words and language, and it's a very exciting but also dangerous thing because you want to then copy that and you can never copy it. But in answer to your question of why I write it, I don't know, and I've never really questioned it. I know that I discovered poetry. In a way, I discovered poetry in America when I was an undergraduate student, and I was reading contemporary poetry there, and it was like learning language or hearing a voice for the first time, because I had studied poetry in school, but it didn't speak to me in a sense that contemporary poetry spoke to me, because we were studying in a very stilted way, you know, at the front of the classroom, reciting Charge of the Light Brigade and all of this stuff, which has its, which sows the seed for rhythm and meter and beat and the appreciation for that, but it doesn't open up the mind in a way that a line of Neruda's does. And I think when I discovered these new voices, I felt that I had something to say as well. And as you know, I write poetry and fiction, and I work as a journalist as well. And I'm always asked, what's the difference? How do you switch between? And my answer is that poetry is the first love, and it's like a love affair. It's obsessional, it's something that you wake up because a word or a line stays in your head, you know. Journalism is like the one-night stand, because you have to produce it and you finish it off in the, you know, overnight, deliver it, it's printed, it's done, and it's forgotten. And the novel is like a marriage, you know, it's a steady slog of day in, day out with little things of joy and lots of hardship, and, you know, ultimately you arrive there. But poetry is love, and that's what it's always been for me.
Since we
It happens that I am tired of being a woman. It happens that I cannot walk past country clubs or consulates without considering the hags, skinny as guitar strings, foraging in the rubbish. All along the streets, there are forlorn mansions where girls have grown up and vanished. I am vanishing too. I want nothing to do with gates, nor balconies, nor flat-screen TVs. It happens that I am tired of my veins and my hips and my navel and my sorrows. It happens that I am tired of being a woman. Just the same, it would be joyous to flash my legs at the drivers playing chess, to lead the old man at house 38 onto the tarred road, to lie down under the laburnum dripping gold. I do not want to keep growing in the skin, to swell to the size of a mausoleum. I do not want to be matriarch or mother. Understand, I am only in love with these undrunk breasts. And when Monday arrives with the usual battalion of pear-shaped wives doing battle in grocery store aisles, I'll be stalking the fields of concrete and ash, the days pushing me from street to street, leading me elsewhere, to houses without ceiling fans, where daughters disappear and the walls weep. I will weep too, for high-heeled beauty queens, for sewing machines and chickens in cages. I will walk with harness and exiled feet through cravings and renunciations, through heaps of midnight wreckages, where magistrates of crows gather to sing the same broken song of unforgiving loss.
Wow. Yeah, that was really beautiful. You know, it's really, really difficult to dissect poetry. You know, as Oscar Wilde had once said that you cannot really test a bird's flight in a crucible. So it's the same with poetry. You know, you don't want to measure it, the shortness of its lines, or the length of its lines, or the color of the mood, etc., etc. But then one is always curious about the poet's mind. And I'd like to take you to a poem which is titled Adulterous Citizen in Tishani's book. And it starts with a quote from Suketu Mehta's book, Maximum City, which says, I'm an adulterous resident. When I'm in one city, I'm dreaming of the other. I'm an exile, citizen of the country of longing. So Tishani, I'd like you to read out that poem and then tell me about this feeling of belonging everywhere and nowhere, you know.
Yeah, that line of, I've used a lot of prose actually in this book to help me write my poetry, because sometimes you do come across things in the most unexpected places, and this line of Suketu's really struck home with me, and I think that we all have this feeling of great privilege in a way of belonging and being able to inhabit different realities and different spaces, and I certainly do, but every once in a while images jar up in a funny way that really make you realize the craziness of trying to be in so many places at one time, you know, and I think my whole life I've been in a kind of love-hate relationship with the city of Madras, now called Chennai, where I was born. And I keep returning, I keep leaving, I keep returning. And at some point, I think, why do I come back to this place? And other times, I think, how could I live without this place? And so it's this dilemma of belonging to any place, actually. And so this is a little bit about what that poem is trying to address. The adulterous citizen. When it comes to it, there is only the long paved road that leads to a house with a burning light. A house you can never own, but allows you to sleep in its bed without demanding sex, eat from its cupboards without paying, lie in the granite cool of its tub without drowning. And only when the first shards of day slice through the blinds of the basement windows, nudging you with something of a whisper, something like, maybe it's time to go, do you finally drag your suitcases up the carpeted stairs, out the front door, onto the summer pavements. It is nothing like losing a lover, or leaving behind the lanes of childhood. Nothing like scaling the winged walls of memory to discover your friends have packed up their boxes and vanished. More like stumbling into a scene from the future, where the ghost of a husband beckons with pictures of a family you no longer recognize, and other people's children race across the grass, lulling you into belief that you can always return like this, without key in hand, to lie in the folds of one city while listening to the jagged, carnal breaths of another.